sim racers from around the globe, honoring a revolutionary era of open-wheel racing. With a beast not easily tamed, roaring around legendary circuits at breakneck speed. When engineers and drivers push boundaries, sometimes too far. When heroes muscled roaring beasts wheel to wheel around the hallowed grounds. A time when the only driver aids were his 2 feet, the perfect combination of man, machine, and speed. Experience the competition and the glory of early 80s IndyCar action. The Lionheart Retro Series presented by Next Level Racing starts now.
Over the past 9 weeks of the Lionheart Retro Series, it has been Sean Campbell domination in his debut season. He has looked human though. The rest of the field aims to beat him every week, and Phil Kraus has done it 4 times. But second in the championship, Michael O'Brien has Hawkeyes on a 56-point gap to close up. That was 3 different Iowa references because we're putting the corn in corners and the rapid in Cedar Rapids. This is the Next Level Racing Iowa 250 presented by Arena TV. Hi everyone, and welcome back to RaceSpotTV and coverage of the 2023 Lionheart Retro Series. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. Hi everybody, Joey Tebbin here, once again filling in for Arjuna, and alongside me, I guess fittingly filling in for DJ Clark, making his triumphant Lionheart return, it's who else but Joe Peak. And don't forget, you can be a part of the team as well and follow along with the live timing at RaceSpotTV/timing. Well, let's dive straight into our butt kicker pre-race show, because Joe, there's so many things to talk about when we come to Iowa Speedway every season, but there's one number that we hear every single time: 7/8 of a mile. It's the very definition of a high-intensity bull ring, and with such a short lap, there's no times for breaks.
Exactly. You're going to have to be on it from the word go, and you're not going to get to relax the entire time. The straightaways are so short and the turns are so tight that everybody's just going to be jumbled together. Even if you do get long green flag runs, you're back in the traffic immediately. So there's no rest for the weary, and I'm afraid you're just going to have to deal with it.
No rest for the weary, indeed. That's kind of the case for the entire schedule here, Joe, because we may be at a short track here at Iowa, but this is not a short calendar whatsoever. Going all the way until the season finale at Auto Club. It is a long season for all of these drivers. They do get a few breaks throughout, but if you want to win the championship in the Lionheart Retro Series, you got to be consistent all season long and across a very, very wide variety of tracks. We're currently in a little bit of a short oval kick. Iowa this week, Phoenix next week, and then instantly we're off to the road courses: Mosport, Barber, Phillip Island, just like you want to see in any sort of North American open wheel competition series. It is a mix of road courses and ovals, and of course that rewards the greatest of drivers who can compete in both of those disciplines.
Indeed, you have to be a jack of all trades in this style of racing, and this is definitely going to be one of the more unique ones because, yes, it's an oval, but like we said, it's a short course oval. It's a short track, so that is kind of its own beast, honestly, here. But, of course, the schedule is brought to you by Next Level Racing. Next Level Racing is an industry-leading cockpit and motion simulator manufacturer devoted to creating the most immersive experience possible for the global sim racing community. Take your racing to the next level and visit nextlevelracing.com.
Indeed, indeed. And also brought to us by Next Level Racing is the driver standings, which, no surprise, Sean Campbell is at the top of for WMP Racing, which I suppose isn't technically a team. It is just kind of Sean Campbell's solo team. But either way, he is in dominant control of this championship. Made his debut in this series last season, did the final 6 races, won the final 6 races. But he has looked far more human in the championship so far. He does have multiple wins. He does have the championship lead, but it's actually Phil Kraus there down in 5th place who has more wins, just hasn't had the consistency so far, unfortunately, over the first 9 weeks to really compete with Sean Campbell. But he's got many, many weeks to bring that point gap down. Michael O'Brien and last season's champion Mike Rasmus look to bring that gap down as well. David Sirois, always strong, always consistent in 4th. Then Taylor, Graff, Fowler, Fontaine, and another rookie in Christopher Hill bring us down to the end of the top 10 in the drivers' standings. The team standings look a little bit different, though, because Sean Campbell is driving for his own team, WMP Racing. He doesn't have any teammates. You do have to look at the team standings in the perspective of graphics. Nizumi Graphics LC MadWorks, last season's team's champions, technically still lead the standings over the secondary graphics squad, just Nizumi Graphics LC. It's a big old points gap there. It's a big points gap back to Raven Lavoie Motorsports as well. But with the kind of dominance of Sean Campbell so far, with the fact that the field is kind of open underneath him, it's anybody's game in the team standings, Joe.
It certainly is, and those team standings are just as important to the drivers. I can promise you that. We've also got the rookie standings, of course, that they are running here in this series, and Sean Campbell curiously qualifies for that. Despite coming in and absolutely dominating the end of last season, he's still technically a rookie. So, yes, like you said, he's been winning his way through it all, but, I mean, he hasn't been here for a whole year yet, so he's up at the top of this one as well. Phil Krause, a bit of a distant second behind him. And then it gets pretty close down between third and fourth, single 2 points between Sam Fontaine and Christopher Hill. You get a bit of a jump back to Matt Wagner, but you've also got a very close fight for seventh there. Andrew Wood and Drew White, another one that is 2 points apart with Jeff Heisong not that far behind them as well. So still all to play for here in the midseason.
And a familiar name down at the bottom as well, Juncos Hollinger Esport, really spreading their corn seeds wide across many, many leagues. And Bruno Miranda has been doing them well here in this series for a couple of races. But first, as well, we must look at the series details presented by Arena, or presented by GSI, rather. Season 7 of the Lionheart Retro Series. That's for just the Retro Series here. It's actually the 10th year of the Lionheart Racing Series itself. It has been a decade. We're making a decade of Lionheart Racing. It's been a fantastic decade, and we're looking forward to many more. But for now, we still do have this Lotus 79 around here. A custom fixed setup provided every single week. Cash and prizes at the end of the season total up to $3,600. All the drivers also looking for wins in their own right, but definitely looking for those prizes at the end of the season. Unique thing in the calendar is the Triple Crown of Pocono, Indy, and Auto Club. You win all three of those races, you get a big prize. You win any of those races, you get some additional prizes as well. Pocono was won by Sean Campbell. Indy was won by Rodrigo Munoz a few weeks ago. So nobody's going to be able to finish out the Triple Crown, but Campbell or Munoz could go 2 out of 3. Or defending series champion Mike Rasmus could take the third of those and maybe start making his charge in the championship. MadWorks, of course, still in the lead of the team's championship in their putting themselves together. I can't think of the word for that right now with graphics. So they could be going 2 for 2 in that. And now it's time for the arena event details here, because 2 short tracks await in the near future. It's Iowa, then it's Phoenix. Top 12 drivers in laps led here, they've not been able to convert that to victory. So whoever could be on pole here, whoever could be in the top 12 even, there's no guarantee that they could win here, Joe. And something immensely interesting to me here is that the car we're driving here, the Lotus 79, you're more of a racing scholar than I am, Joe. This vehicle was not designed to race on ovals. It's a very unique oval racing challenge. It fits very well, but it certainly wasn't designed to do this.
Yeah, iRacing obviously doesn't have an actual North American open wheeler from the 70s to run, so this is kind of the closest amalgamation. And this is pretty period accurate because in North America, they also kind of discovered ground effects right around the early 80s on open wheelers. So I'd say that it's a pretty good comparison, maybe a little bit more downforce than the actual cars would have had, but it puts on a really good show.
Well, it's about time to get into qualifying, but before we can do that, we have to thank all the people who make all of this possible here on RaceSpotTV. First and foremost, once again, it's HyperX. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, maker of premier gaming gear like the legendary, ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit www.hyperx.com.
And brought to you by Next Level Racing. Next Level Racing is an industry-leading cockpit and motion simulator manufacturer devoted to creating the most immersive experience possible for the global sim racing community. Take your racing to the next level and visit nextlevelracing.com.
This coverage is also brought to you by The Butt Kicker. You're passionate about sim racing, but it always feels a little flat compared to the feeling of driving a real car. Now you can actually feel what it's like to drive a race car. Buttkicker haptic hardware and software are easy to install and let you feel every bump in the track, slip of your tire, and engine redline. The tactile feedback is so accurate and realistic, you'll be driving faster and having more fun than ever before. Visit thebuttkicker.com.
Also brought to you by the BMW Performance Center. If you think sim racing is thrilling, try getting behind the wheel of a real race car. The BMW M4 GT4 experience at the BMW Performance Driving School in Thermal, California, puts you in the cockpit of one of BMW's fastest cars, complete with roll cage and racing slicks. You'll get fitted with a racing suit, practice pit stops, and lap their track with pro instructors. Nothing virtual about their thrills. To book your M4 GT4 experience, call or visit the links on the screen.
Gomez Sim Industries are makers of high-end esports equipment and controls, precision built using nothing but the best materials available today. Passion and handmade craftsmanship drive each made-to-order build, creating a driving experience like no other. Visit GomezSimIndustries.com.
And finally, Arena. Arena is an all-new esports streaming experience driven by real-time interactions between gamers and their communities. Arena brings live broadcast fan engagement to the next level. Get involved and make a difference on arena.tv.
And last but not least, it's graphics. From simple logos to full branding for your company, Virtual Designs deliveries raced by Indy 500 champions. Graphics offers the finest quality with a wide range of design services. Visit www.graphicsesports.com. Thanks to all of those who make all of this possible for the Lionheart Racing Series here on RaceSpotTV. And thankfully, Joe, we've timed that perfectly. Practice just coming to an end now. The last 10 seconds on the clock ticking down. And then it's qualifying time at Iowa.
Yeah, and this qualifying will probably be pretty important. You'll want to be up at the front. The aero wash on ovals in these cars is not that great. You're going to get stuck behind someone and find it difficult if you're in the midst of the pack. Now, passing is definitely possible, but because of the chaos that tends to erupt, I'd say you'd want to be up towards the front from the beginning on.
It was Phil Kraus on top of the board in practice. Not much of a surprise given his very, very strong success in the IndyCar side of iRacing and in Lionheart as well. The champion of that series last year. Always very, very strong on the ovals, but there's a lot of drivers who are strong on the ovals in this series, and all of them have come to play here now that it's time to go as fast as humanly possible. The sun's starting to set, the track getting cooler with every second, and it is time to go very, very fast. First car on track right now, instantly aborting the attempt. I think a little bit of a mistake there coming out of the final corner from the 26.
I haven't seen a lot of cars aborting their attempts, honestly, which is interesting, but not too shocking because I found it was kind of difficult to get the car really up to speed truly by the exit of turn 4 on your outlap. It is such a short circuit that you're not really up to full tilt quite yet, so you have to absolutely maximize it.
Drew White, first lap on the board there. At the top of the board, Matt Taylor. We know he's quick in open-wheel cars on ovals. He crosses the line for a 20.993. He's going to be looking for more speed on lap 2. We do know at some tracks, Joe, if you run the top on lap 1 and then move down to the bottom on lap 2, you can pick up a little bit of speed. Is that the case at Iowa? We're about to find out here with Matt Taylor. The Christmas tree's lighting up, and Taylor brings it across the line. Big lap for him, 20.245. Only going to put him 5th, though.
That's not enough. I would say that here, if you're running a couple lanes up, that would definitely help, but I don't know about right up against the wall. That might not be as quickly as we follow with George Anzaldo to see what he can do. Currently in 14th after his first lap, so let's see what the second one looks like for him as he's going to try and run a pretty low line. Interesting there. I found the middle line was probably about the way to go, but he thinks he can find speed on that one, but he's only going to put himself up to 13th with that run.
Yeah, you could see he had to lift out of the throttle on the exit of 4, and that was not a good thing there for Anzaldo. Cristobal Valenzuela crosses the line for lap 1. Don't think that's going to be a representative lap time for him. About 2/10 off the bottom. Here he goes for lap number 2, firing it off the exit of turn 2. There's a very, very steep transition there. That could be very tough on old tires. But out of the final corner, Valenzuela very, very high. Across the line for him. Does find 3/10 on lap number 2. That'll put him in P11, right ahead of Richie Hearn by 1,000th of a second.
David Rodriguez trying to warm the tires up, and you can see as he steers it back and forth. That's exactly what he's trying to do here. Again, trying to get some temperature in them before they get going, as it's only 77 Fahrenheit with it being a little late in the day and the shadows on the track, but he's also going to onboard it.
It's pretty crazy to me seeing Phil Kraus and Sean Campbell all the way down the board like that. Campbell's run is done. He is going to start at the back of the field, which is absolutely shocking. Phil Kraus could very well find some speed on lap 2 here. The team talent driver bringing it to the line. What's it going to be for Kraus? It's going to be a 20.178. Only good enough for second on the grid, though. A 7.4 actually is the timing updates. 1,000th of a second over David Sirois. The driver who's won more races than anybody else this season is going to have to be stuck on the outside of the front row, though, assuming he doesn't get kicked off of there by Luis Gonzalez Nunez, one of the last drivers who has a chance to put together a run. Craig Forsyth on the track as well.
Tell you what, 2nd through 4th is going to be mighty tight if their race pace is like their qualifying pace. They are 4 1,000ths of apart from each other, all 3 drivers. So incredibly tight, as it looks like Forsyth on his first lap is good enough for 22nd. So here goes the second lap round again, trying to duck it down to the bottom. Problem with that is, like you said, the car wants to drift up on the exit of the corner, just plows, especially early in the stint. You can't get it to bite as well. But his second lap, only good enough for 23rd now.
Some big laps coming in there. David Rodriguez and Mark Cohn run identical laps to both themselves and to David Sirois. A very, very busy portion of the board there. 2nd through 5th, 2nd through 6th, separated by 0.003 of a second. There is absolutely nothing in this. Jeff Hysong crosses the line on lap 1. That's going to put him at the bottom of the board. Let's see if the rookie can pick up some more speed on lap number 2 here. It's an exceptionally short lap. You may have seen on social media, there was an IndyCar team who did a feature. How many questions can you answer in one lap of Iowa Speedway? It's very, very few. And Jeff Hysong crosses the line to answer those questions. Not going to be as high as he would want. 24th for him.
Yeah, you talk about the tightness between 2nd through 5th. What's interesting to me is O'Brien is 300ths ahead of everybody else. You have to go all the way down to P13 and 14 to get to the next couple cars that are that far apart from one another.
Well, qualifying has come to an end here, and it's 2nd place in the championship, starting first on the grid. Michael O'Brien puts it at the top of the board in front of oval extraordinaire himself, Phil Kraus. David Rodriguez and Mark Cohn make up row number 2. Then it's David Sirois and Tyler Graff on row number 3. Remember, 2nd through 6th, separated by 3 or 4 thousandths of a second, depending on which 10,000th we're counting to. Matt Wagner and last season's winner, Mike Rasmus, start alongside each other on row number 4. And then it's Chris Fowler and Chris Reagan. It's all Chris's on row number 5. Luis Gonzalez Nunez starts alongside Chris Stouffer. It is a very populous section of Chris's down there. And it's Matt Taylor and Luke Daniels ahead of Drew White and Indy winner Rodrigo Munoz. Cristobal Valenzuela starts alongside our old buddy Richie Hearn on row number 9. And then down to the end of the top 20, it's Sam Fontaine and George Anzaldo. Alex Guillon starts alongside Seb Alexander, and then championship leader Sean Campbell starting as low as I've ever seen him in 23rd, just ahead of Jeff Hysong on row number 12. It's a big field, though. The hits keep on coming. Craig Forsyth and Hugo Galaz on row 13. Our other old buddy Sam Ryman got no qualifying lap in, so he'll be looking from the back alongside Mike Ridney. And then it's Jimbo Pfeiffer on the final row. 29 cars in the field here tonight, Joe. It's going to get very, very busy out there.
Exactly, and that's pretty close to what we saw in the real world as well as far as car count. So that should give you a good idea of just how difficult it's going to be managing that traffic and how quickly they're going to be approaching that back of the field. So if this stays green for, I'd say, even 12 to 14 laps, they could reach the back of it. It all depends on how powerful the draft is and if everybody can stick with it. But if they get spread out, expect them to meet the tail end of the snake very quickly.
Because this is such a short track, it's shorter than a mile, we do get 2 pace laps around here, so lots of time to get those tires warm and lots of time to ride on board with some of our sponsored onboards. First and foremost, it is Chris Reagan with the Butt Kicker on board. Sim racing is better with Butt Kicker. Visit thebuttkicker.com. We also have Michael O'Brien. We're watching from the pole sitter's perspective. He's got the GSI on board. Makers of high-end esports equipment and controls. Visit GomezSimIndustries.com. Also, George Anzaldo running the entry that sponsors the race. It's Arena. A new streaming experience for esports is coming. Get involved and make a difference on arena.tv. And last but not least, on the outside of the front row, it's Phil Kraus with the HyperX on board. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game. Got a couple of moments here until we go green, Joe. About a half a lap to go. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Who is going to win at the end of this Iowa 250?
I'm going to have to go with Kraus. You got to go with the oval guy here. Yes, Campbell has been dominant, but he's coming from way back. He's going to be vulnerable. He could be a good bet, but I don't think he's the safe bet.
Everybody getting those last little bits of tire warming in here. But competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart. It's about time to sound the horn amidst all the corn. In control of the field is Michael O'Brien. And here we go for the next level racing, Iowa 150. Already up to the top is Michael O'Brien, flying into the lead of the race. And then third place, David Rodriguez gets Phil Kraus into turn 2.
Good start from everybody. Looks like they're all thinking long-term here, which is a good sign. This is going to be a lot about survival, I have to imagine. It's easy to wreck these cars. Even a little brush of the wall can have significant damage on it, so you got to stay away from those barriers.
We're seeing the multi-grooves of Iowa already on display here. You see David Rodriguez ripping the top, Mark Cohn trying to make the bottom work, and Phil Kraus just kind of stuck behind a wall of cars figuring out where the best way to go is. As we cross the line, we've already completed 3 laps in the blink of an eye, and Phil Kraus seems a little trapped right now in 4th.
Yeah, lost that track position, which could wind up being critical, and they're already going quite single file, not seeing anybody really trying anything down the straightaways. But when you see them fanning out like that, that's them trying to get clean air on the nose of the car. It keeps the downforce going. Otherwise, it's just going to drift upwards, or you're also going to burn the tires off. Tires probably going to be a bit of a talking point, it sounds like, tonight.
Can already feel the tires screaming with these high speeds. You can see it. You can basically see the rubber shredding off of them and flying into the walls. At least you can imagine it anyway. Phil Kraus riding in 4th still. You can tell the draft going to be very effective, even with these short straights. Not able to do anything with David Rodriguez, though. That's Tyler Graff in the sort of British racing green and gold car behind Kraus. Looking to the top, looking to the bottom, just trying to find some clean air. Nothing doing for him, though.
No, going to stay in line. You can afford to stay patient here unless you're in the back of the field and need to start making some passes. If you're up at the front, I think let the race come to you at this point. Let it kind of sort itself out. See what you have underneath you. Now, everybody is on the same setup, so you might not necessarily have anything in that realm, but depending on how you drive the car, that can have a big effect, because how much you're cranking the wheel, how good you are with your line, can determine how well the tires last, and we'll see that in a big way towards the end of this stint.
The thing that really concerns me, Joe, about Tyler Graff running that top line is because there's some very, very big bumps up there. They're going to be less important here in a high downforce low to 79 than they would be in a NASCAR truck, for example. But they are still definitely noticeable. And if I was Tyler Graff, I'd be wondering, is it really worth it to run the top when I am experiencing the biggest bumps on the track?
From my experience, they didn't really seem to upset the car that much. I'm not sure if that's going to change, because the cars do get light when they burn off the fuel, and that affects the downforce. So it may be something later in the lap where you'll see him change. He's also running down at the bottom. That could also be a problem. This is, again, why I suggest the middle, is because in turns 1 and 2, there's also a really big bump down towards the bottom.
Phil Kraus is still hunting. This is a guy who knows how to run a long-run race. This is a guy who isn't going to go for the aggressive move as early as he needs to, because he knows he's going to have the pace in the future, but he is still hunting Mark Cohn, running a higher line, getting these runs onto the straights. Still can't do anything, though, because we are still only 10 laps in. We haven't even done a full 10 miles yet, and Cohn's tires still are alive. But I can only imagine that's not going to last for that long if he is using up the tires a little bit more than Phil Kraus, which is a reasonable thing to assume, potentially.
Definitely looks like it's been a little bit difficult if anybody has more pace than where their qualifying implies, because Biggest movers are Jimbo Pfeiffer up 5 and Sean Campbell up 4. That's not exactly setting the world on fire, although it's a good number of them. But since, like we said, Sean Campbell should be pretty fast theoretically. Him only having 4 so far, I'm not sure if he's just kind of taking his time or if he's truly having problems trying to make overtakes.
Riding on board with that HyperX on board of Phil Kraus. You can see him driving directly into the sun in turn 3, and now the game's changed. It's Mark Cohn going up to the top, Phil Kraus going down to the bottom. Battle has shifted, but the thing that hasn't shifted, Joe, that sun in turn 3, it is blinding. You can't even see the car in front of you when you turn in.
Yeah, and that'll depend some on who's got what settings in the sim, because those that don't have the HDR will not get as much of a glare in their faces. So I've heard some say that they'll keep it turned down just simply because of their computer settings. I wonder how many of them have it turned down just because of situations like this, because you can see just how distracting it can be and how hard it can be to try and spot your markers. He got awful close to the back of Cone that time, but just could not take it in deep enough.
And Kraus is getting some fantastic runs, but can't really do anything with them. And you see right behind, Graf versus Rasmus. It's basically a duplication of this battle here. Rasmus trying to get around the outside of Graf, but he just cannot find a gap anywhere on the track. Normally in open wheel cars in this track, we think about the dirty air. We think about wanting to run where the car in front of you isn't. But with the ground effect of these cars, I do almost wonder, is the dirty air slightly less imperative or slightly less destructive, and you can follow a little bit closer than you could in an Indy car, for example?
Slightly, yes. It isn't as bad as you would think, considering how much downforce it's producing. But those wings are not like modern open wheeler wings, where they are just trained to within a millimeter of trying to get the air to do what it does. You have to remember, this is 1970s technology, so there is still quite a bit of guesswork when it comes to aerodynamics, and so they disrupt the air quite a bit. And there is a good bit of downforce that comes from those wings. So those behind and that are following close behind another car will find that it's going to chew up their tires if they try and sit behind them for quite a few laps.
This is why it's good to have Joe Peak in the booth. I don't think anybody on iRacing has more knowledge of this car and the Lotus 49. It's like a textbook over there. And I know one guy who was very happy you were here tonight, Joe, is Anzaldo here with the Arena on board, riding in the middle of the field here, 17th, right behind our old friend Richie Hearn. In the dirty air, but very, very deep in the pack. He's probably thinking strategy, which could open up in about 40 laps time. It's still a while until the pit window opens, but he's already thinking about it deep in the field.
Yeah, some of this will depend on if we start to get cautions. These races tend to go one of two ways. You can either have a ton of yellows, or it could be what we've been seeing up till now, which is just nothing but green flag racing. But if it goes green flag racing, we're expecting 2 pit stops based on the fuel windows.
Look who's hunting behind Anzaldo there. Not Sean Campbell directly. Drew White is directly behind him, but you have to look at that blue and white entry right behind of Sean Campbell. The championship leader is not used to being this far back in any kind of race, whether it's an oval race, whether it's a road race. He is thinking forward. He is knowing forward, because this is not where he normally is. Luis Nunez has been making progress forward up into P11, hunting down Chris Stouffer for the edge of the top 10. Stouffer still ripping that top line. I'm amazed that he's still making that work. But Nunez is all the way to the back of him and trying to make the bottom work, throwing it into turn 1. Nothing there for him yet.
A lot of the speed that you're going to be seeing from these drivers will come not necessarily the mid corner, but coming off the turns. If they open up the wheel a little bit, that is where they're going to get a lot of the speed. Just trying to, again, scrub less off of it, because as we saw in qualifying, speed at this track in this car is made by the thousandths of a second, and it's those little inputs that make a monster difference.
These guys are scaring me, Joe. Rasmus and Graf, he's getting so close to the back of Graf into the corners, then sending it up to the high line. He's leaving millimeters in it, and it's scaring me every single lap, and it's not working for him either. He can't make the move he wants to make. He's just probably trying to strike the fear into Tyler Graf.
But I kind of don't blame him. If everybody else is going low, as long as we don't have the marbles up there, that's not a bad thing. Having the wider line will also preserve the tires a little bit. And these cars are flat out by this point. You do have to do some little lifts early in the stint with the cold tires before they really get up to temperature. But by now, they're absolutely up to temperature. And he can pin that all the way around, although I think he just brushed the wall.
Little bit of a dink there. I'm surprised that's the first time we've seen that, Joe, because we've seen a lot of guys, especially in qualifying, getting tight on the exit of the corner, sending it up the track, even some having to lift. I'm shocked that that's the first time in 29 cars in the field here. That's the first time we've seen somebody start to get that close to the wall, and he almost does it again.
Yeah, I think he learned his lesson. He gave it a much wider berth this time, though, so I think he figured out I was maybe flirting with disaster a little too closely. And he's going to continue to try and close back up on Graf here. But, I mean, you almost kind of have to take a dirt racing approach to this and run where your competitors are not. Because if you just follow in their slipstream, you're probably not going to pass them. You have to try and do something different.
It's looking a little bit like the definition of insanity here, just running the same idea every single lap. But Tyler Graf, kind of able to stretch a little bit of distance here to Rasmus. It's not as close as it once was. I do wonder, has Rasmus shredded those tires a little bit? Is it looking like a halfway shredded mozzarella ball on those Cooper tires on the Lotus 79? I already forget what tire brand they used in F1 in 79.
I think it was Goodyear's.
That makes more sense.
Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure. But I'll see if I can find out. Meanwhile, yeah, I don't know. I don't think Rasmus is shredding those tires, to be honest, because his fastest lap was lap 26. We're on lap 31 right now, so that's pretty recent that he ran one of his fastest, or if not his absolute fastest up till now. So I think he's doing fine. I wonder if he's just backing off a little bit and trying to reset here.
I did check while you were speaking there, Joe, by the way. It was Goodyear's. You were right.
Hooray.
Your credibility as the oracle of iRacing Lotuses remains.
I have to admit, I probably know a little bit more about the 49s than these guys, but we'll see if we can sell George on having a wingless series.
Oh, I mean, I'm here for it.
I am too.
That would be a pretty fun addition. We're getting nice fields here in the 79s. Might as well open it up, and then we can have you as our resident Donald Davidson.
There we go. Well, right now, just nothing doing there in the mid pack. Is I think he's definitely given a lot more space. We'll see if he continues to fall off. Yeah, that was a little bit more sketchy, drifting up high off of 2.
He's getting a little bit desperate. Maybe the tires are getting a little bit desperate. It is a struggle for Mike Rasmus right now, and it seems like it's a struggle for everybody down the field. Iowa, always a difficult place to pass. You've got to spend multiple laps setting up an overtake, but it has been a struggle deep in the field. David Sirois, one of the top drivers in the championship right now, longtime Lionheart driver, longtime open wheel driver across all of iRacing. Even he is struggling to get by Chris Reagan in the middle of the pack.
If Rasmus is having a struggle, it's a fast struggle because he set another of his fastest laps at a 20.437. Now, some of that, granted, was probably due to the fuel burn off because these cars, at least on the road side, I'm not as familiar with the oval side with these things, but on the road side, they get quicker at the end of a stint due to the less weight. Does look like that might be the case here as well. So while tires are something of a concern, I wonder if most of them will do their best, honestly, to not refuel, or at least not refuel all the way, just to keep a lighter cars, even if we get cautions.
We are going to have to start thinking about lap traffic here soon. Michael O'Brien has a very big lead right now. He's got a 2-second lead over David Rodriguez. But if you look at the back of the field, Sam Ryman has had a little bit of a struggle, and he has just gone 1 lap down. He is the first car to get lapped by our leader. Jeff Hysong is coming up next. Alex Gouillon, Mike Rigney. There's going to be a lot of trouble here for Michael O'Brien soon. The clean track is over.
Exactly. So This is kind of what I was talking about before. It's like a conveyor belt that starts happening. There's just going to be no gaps in the field in a bit, and that's when it gets the most difficult, especially if you start getting into a situation where cars are both lapping and being lapped at the same time, which can definitely happen if we get enough of green flag racing. Poor Sam, though, he tends to like to run at the back early in the races and let things pan out and wait for the yellows, but that's not working out today. He fell to the back early on, and I think he fell a little too far back because he lost the draft of the cars in front and clearly is lacking a little speed.
We'll see if he can fight with Jeff Hysong there. Hysong does seem to be falling off just a little bit, but as Joe has said, tire fall off, probably not the biggest thing in the world for the majority of the field, but maybe a little bit of fatigue, maybe a little bit of just late run, loss of speed. Either way, Hysong struggling at this point in the run, but O'Brien is a little bit of clean air right now for just a moment. He gets to breathe for a second, and then probably in about 2 or 3 more laps, he's going to have Guyon, he's going to have Rigney, he's going to have Seb Alexander, who is kind of surprisingly low in the order right now. And even with just passing those 2 lapped cars, you can see he's lost a little bit to Rodriguez, but suddenly now Rodriguez has to pass the same cars. That's the trade-off with the lap traffic.
I was like that, I think it's Martin Brundle that says it wakes them up, that the lapped cars, when they get lapped by the leader has the unenviable task of being the first one to try and overtake them. Everybody else, they're now aware, and they're watching their mirrors and trying to figure out, okay, when am I going to be approached by those behind, and have a feel for it. So the leader has all the hard work. Everybody else kind of picks up the scraps, and you would think that would help them catch up. But in the case of Rodriguez, still about 2 seconds behind. Seems to be just struggling a little bit here to try and make good use of what's been handed him.
Cone gets by the traffic. Phil Kraus getting a little bit held up there. Got by Ryman fairly easily, but Hysong proving a little bit tougher for him. We did also see Luis Nunez has actually made the pass on Chris Stouffer. He's up into the top 10. Kraus does finally make the move on Hysong. Now he can start looking forward as Tyler Graff almost gets into the wall off of turn 4. You just saw it in the background there. He's getting very tight in traffic.
Yeah, and he doesn't have the pressure anymore of Mike Rasimus like he did before. So this is all him and the handling of his car as he approaches on Sam Ryman here. And coming off the corner, actually, I think we are watching Rasimus on the back of Graff right now, trying to play catch-up. This could be his opportunity to maybe catch him back up if he does continue to have some problems. That last run through 1 and 2 actually did look like he was slightly quicker and cut down a couple car lengths.
Let's see, is this finally the chance for Rasmus? It looks like it did a little bit earlier in the stint when he was able to close down and scare us a little bit, trying to rip the top around the outside. He's up to his favorite line once again through 1 and 2, almost kissing that black stripe on the wall, almost making it a little bit thicker black. But here he comes to the top in 3 and 4. He's got the run again. Can he make it down to the bottom? Is he going to send it to the top again? He goes to the bottom this time. He's changing it up.
Was the only lane choice he had as Graff was on that outside, which actually might be a bit of a smart move because Graff probably knows at this point that is the line that Mike likes to run. So he's forcing him out of his comfort zone, saying, if you're going to pass me, you're going to have to do it in a way that's not familiar to you.
The bottom not as effective as Rasmus wanted, and instantly back up to the top here. Graff went to the top last time, went to the bottom this time. Both of these guys can run either line in the track, but neither of them seem to be as effective as either of them want. But here comes Rasmus. This is a big run. This is a huge run on Tyler Graff off the corner. He's going to have the effect of the draft. Still can't do anything with it, though. That looked like such a big run, and nothing came of it. Now he's going to run into the back of Sam Ryman.
With Hysong there, those two battling for position. Sam's going to let them go. Very gentlemanly thing from Sam to do, but it might actually open it up as he's going to be able to duck under his rival Hysong and try to sneak the position. Picked his pocket. That was clever stuff.
Nice. Very nice stuff, but it does look like Hysong's fighting back here. It's quite the musical battle here with the Rhyme Man and the Hysong, but Hysong does get back by him. It was a moment of glory for Sam Ryman, and now he's looking at Black Bumper again.
Just not there. What I find interesting is the fact that Mike backed off as well up there, because he looked much faster than Graf for a little bit. He gained on him multiple car lengths very quickly, had his go at it, and now he's backed off once again. So maybe it is a tire thing for him that he's just kind of looking out for it. That was his, one push to try and see if he could make it work. It didn't work, so now it's back to what he was doing before.
Things are getting very, very close at the head of the field. David Rodriguez has brought that gap up to Michael O'Brien down to half a second. Was 0.3 of a second faster on the previous lap alone. That is coming down, and it is coming down fast. A lot of it because of lap traffic, but a lot of it seems to be David Rodriguez has a ton of speed here at the end of the run.
Don't forget, we're looking at about 60 to 65 laps on fuel here. And in fact, just as I say that, I saw a driver dive in, trying to figure out who that is. That's Chris Stouffer.
Stouffer coming down pit lane. He was struggling. He fell from the last spot in the top 10, I think, down to about 15th. Richie Hearn got by him. And then he said, you know what? It's finally time to come in. We can make it on 2 stops here if I come in now. See what Chris Stouffer can do with the undercut. The main thing he's hoping for right now, Joe, is that the caution we haven't seen all night doesn't magically come out right now.
And the unfortunate thing is pit stops are the most likely time to see cautions because you get drivers on different strategies, different sets of tires, getting them up to temperature when they're a little bit more difficult to control. So you're very vulnerable pulling this move. But I'm guessing since he wasn't maybe positioned where he would have liked to be, this was kind of, if we don't take any risks, we're going to be staying at the back. So let's take a risk and see if it does anything. We don't lose a whole lot.
This looks very familiar to some of you who have been with us for the entire Lionheart Retro Series season, because last time out at New Hampshire, you know who won the race at the last short oval? It was Michael O'Brien. We also saw Mike Rasmus up at the top of the field. Mark Cohn was up at the top of the field. Curiously, Sean Campbell also finished 5th in that race. He is not quite lived up to those expectations tonight, but here comes Rodriguez up to the top side through 3 and 4. This is the biggest run he's had. This is the biggest chance we've had for somebody new to lead the race, but no run there for Rodriguez. Stays in the draft of O'Brien. Let's see what he can do on the back straight, though. Ripping the top again.
Yeah, that high side does give you pretty good momentum coming off the corner. And seems to be a quick line. It's just the problem is when you get that run, you're not going to be side by side most times. You just wind up approaching the gearbox of that car ahead, and all they got to do is hug the high side, forcing you down low, and it's tough to make the pass. This time he gets the overlap, and this is a mistake by O'Brien, not covering that one off in time. This might be the overtake. Oh, no, they come together.
The leaders make contact. O'Brien and Rodriguez take each other out, and that is going to be the caution. Rodriguez gets a shot at the lead for the first time, and both of them make contact. Mark Cohn takes over the race lead, and the caution flies for the first time.
They didn't hit anything other than each other, though, so as long as they didn't damage their suspension with that little wallop, they should be able to get away with this, although some of it will depend on if they also got body damage from that, because on ovals and these Lotus 79s, you need the car to be absolutely pristine. Yeah, there you saw the contact, sending them both spinning to the bottom, curiously.
Yeah, Mark Cohn looked like Michael O'Brien looked like he got a little bit tight on the bottom, maybe just not used to running the bottom. He's been running in his own clean air up on the top all race long. And the second he's alongside with David Rodriguez, it all comes loose. But everybody is going to bring it down pit lane this time, except for those drivers who came in early. Poor old Chris Stouffer, I think, had damage, by the way. He was in the box for a full minute, so he's already 5 laps down. He is going to be hoping for a couple more cautions and maybe some wave arounds. Phil Kraus pulls into one of the lead pit stalls. O'Brien in the lead pit stall. Now it becomes a race off pit road. Only about 8 seconds of fuel need to go in these cars. Tire changes are quick. Cohn comes out first, and Phil Kraus comes out second.
This is nice for Kraus. He's back to where he started the race thanks to that incident. Sometimes you need a little bit of luck to help you in a race. It can't always be down to what you got underneath you, because just sometimes things won't go your way, and you need that on your side. You can't expect to always win everything. But this has now put the race a little bit more in his favor, and he's got to grab that opportunity with both hands. This is one more look at the replay. And yeah, I saw that coming exactly as you described it, that the understeer having to pinch down at the bottom just didn't agree with what he was used to, the lines he was used to running, and O'Brien just unfortunately couldn't hold it at the bottom, and he wasn't willing to lift.
But I gotta say, Joe, that is probably the luckiest bit of contact of all time. Any caution we've ever had, that is lucky, because Michael O'Brien only fell to third. He's got no damage, or at least no damage he got repaired in the pit stop. David Rodriguez, the same thing, only fell to fifth. Same pit stop time as anybody else. I think our old buddies, Potatoes O'Brien and David Rodriguez, they've gotten exceptionally lucky there.
Now, the drivers that aren't lucky are Haisong, Ryman, and Guyon, because they're still a lap down. But Pfeiffer and Nunez are able to get their lap back, get back on the lead lap here. So that should help them out. Mark Cohn going to be the third car in line here. And then drivers will get waved around, and he'll be back to the front. And this is always difficult because you have to remember this isn't NASCAR rules where they get a lucky dog and swing them back around onto the lead lap. You have to re-earn these laps the hard way.
And it's never easy. I am trying to make Potatoes O'Brien stick as a Michael O'Brien nickname, by the way. I don't know if it's going to work. It hasn't worked so far. I imagine that should be a sign, but I'm going to keep trying to make it work.
It sounds a little half-baked to me.
It is. It is a dish, but I guess the diners of America, they're not serving it anymore.
Well, you have to get on that drum first. Start.
I will. That's going to be my main. That's what I'm going to use my platform here with this microphone, Joe. I'm going to tell the diners of the country, get those Potatoes O'Brien on the menu. I want to have a Michael O'Brien nickname, and I can't use Conan O'Brien, so that's already taken.
Only the most important of causes, I suppose.
Exactly. I mean, those are the big two O'Briens. I guess there's three now.
Exactly. So Cohn and Kraus here. This is going to be interesting. They're going to be restarting ahead of O'Brien, and he led pretty much that whole thing, other than when they had that little battle where they came together, he and Rodriguez. So what's it going to look like now with him in traffic? Is this going to change? Is he going to have to adjust his line? Is he going to stick to the same thing? I really want to watch that 45 to see if this really changes the complexion of his race.
Look at this is insane levels of weaving. I have not seen this for a while, but these Goodyear tires are kind of like rocks, I feel. They don't get the heat in them very well, so these drivers are doing a ton to get the heat in the tires before this restart. But fittingly, the caution came out. The first caution of this race came out right as the pit window opened, and the next window will begin now. It's going to be Mark Cohn leading the race for the first time. The iRacing Sedan Pace Car pulls onto Iowa Pit Road, and it's Cohn in control over Phil Kraus. Green flag out at Iowa. We're in for the second third of the race.
Rodriguez got a really good jump back there, and he's trying to immediately overtake Graf. You can see him go too wide. Graf on the high side in the green and yellow is going to be able to outgun him off the corner, but it's not done yet.
Here we go. Rodriguez down to the bottom. I think I saw him 3 wide into turn 3, by the way. Luckily, they've resolved that further back. Here comes Tyler Graf to the inside of O'Brien into turn 1. Graf on the bottom, O'Brien on the top. The momentum's up there for Michael O'Brien off the quarter. He's going to hang on. Graf's still trying to make it work, but he can't stay in line.
Yeah, so it seems like track position is actually going to be of quite a bit of importance, more due to the passing. Thought we'd see a bit more of it here today. Granted, some have done a decent job with it. Sean Campbell is up 7 right now, so he continues his trek forward.
He had a good restart there, got a couple spots. You can actually see him in the top portion of the ticker finally, so maybe this is the start of his charge forward. Tyler Graf still trying to charge forward. You saw, I believe, Chris Fowler almost getting into the wall in the background. But Graf has found the top once more, trying to build a run on O'Brien. O'Brien might be nursing a little bit of damage. Rodriguez as well. That was a decent bit of contact. They didn't repair it in the pits, but it could be maybe 8-10 seconds of optionals that could be making the car drive slightly wrong. Either way, O'Brien hanging on.
I went and looked a little bit closer on Michael O'Brien's car. I couldn't see anything that showed obvious signs of damage, so I think he must have gotten away lucky, at least when it comes to body damage. As far as Rodriguez, though, yeah, as we hop on board with O'Brien, look at that front wing. That is spick and span. Just no problems with that one. rear wing pretty much the same. And I'm checking out Rodriguez, and yeah, pretty much the same deal, I believe. They both just got away supremely lucky.
Deeper in the field here, Fontaine and Zaldo and a whole host of others. Craig Forsyth, that is craziness in the back of the pack. Side by side into turn one, that's Sean Campbell trying to make the move on Rodrigo Munoz. These are two of the Triple Crown winners from this season, from Pocono and Indy. Deeper in the field at Iowa, though, and they're still stuck side by side.
Once again, that high line is the place to be. Carry the speed around. You're going to be hard to overtake. Everybody who's pinching the bottom just can't keep the speed off the corner. We saw what happened if you do try that. If you keep your foot in it, you're just going to drift up into that other car outside you.
Campbell keeping it low, being nice and courteous, but he cannot make that move. And Zaldo's going to follow him down there, has to lift out. He can see he was getting tight to the inside of Munoz. Campbell does get by Daniels, though. So he got by Munoz. Now he's ahead of Daniels going into turn one. Can he make it stick this time? Yes, he can. He's clear.
Just has to drift up, and he does. Yep, you don't want to leave that lane open for the car to the outside once you get the job done. Meanwhile, here down to the very inside is that Forsyth, I think, on Munoz. Three wide, almost coming together, and the winner in that one was George Zaldo.
This is getting terrifying. Three wide again. I believe that's Jeff Heisong down at the bottom. He's a lap down, so he'd be wise to back out of that one, and he does. But the race isn't up front right now. The race is deep in the field as everybody's trying to resolve the things in the final couple of spots on the lead lap. Whoa, up to the top goes Craig Forsyth. Huge checkup behind. This is getting very dicey.
I think Sam Fontaine may have brushed the wall because of that. Had a checkup big time because of Forsyth. Thankfully, they're all carrying on. It's starting to thin out just a little bit. They're going to need to settle this pretty soon because all they're doing right now is losing time hand over fist to the leaders. Yes, this is exciting, I'm sure, but right now they're chewing up tires and they're not running as quick a laps as they could.
Fontaine up on top in that white and black car. Then it's Nunez on the bottom and sort of the fire-colored car with the white or the yellow and the red. Lots of colors in the midfield here. Not all of them green, though, because Nunez falls back. But that's contact for Heisong. He goes spinning through the infield after a little bit of contact. No caution's going to come out for that because he did save it. But Jeff Heisong's day has gotten even worse.
I think that was Mike Rigney, actually, the 00. Yeah, that was the red 00 that hit the wall. No caution since he was off the racing line, but he's had to tow it into pit lane.
All right, not helpful to have two identical black cars in the field, but Mike Rigney was the affected there. There he goes. Does he hit the wall? Yes, he does, and he's not getting away with no damage from that one.
You can't get names, I can't get colors, so together we make a whole commentator. This once again goes three wide.
It is fitting, Joe, that you would know the colors, considering you are the color commentator. Never heard that one before.
Well, I'm more keeping an eye out here. Once again, getting very close to that outside wall. This time, Chris Reagan and the very brightly colored purple and white machine there. But the 19, oh, man, he's losing tons of time now. So I think his little lift that he had to make may have cost him. It's definitely a momentum track. You got to keep that speed up. And look at that, just easily breezing by him. That's Jim Pfeiffer and Alex Guyon.
Slowly but surely, everybody's slotting back in line. The craziness of that pack has come to an end for just a moment, but you see a little bit further back, that is Chris Reagan just trying to rip the top, I believe. Almost getting into the wall every single lap. Probably using the tiniest little bit of an air bubble to not get in the wall. Either way, no progress made on Valenzuela. Here we go. That is Sam Fontaine, who we saw kind of distance himself from the incident or the big bubble of cars earlier. Luis Nunez trying to get by him into turn one. I think they're probably content right now to run single file maybe for the moment, but Nunez trying to prove me wrong instantly to run the top.
Reagan's gone into pit lane, so I wonder if he did hit the wall a little bit harder than maybe we had seen and needs to get some repairs because this is definitely off sequence. I can't see what he could gain by trying to pit right now.
On the top, ripping the top, I should say, Craig Forsyth. You do have to say that in these cars especially, because you are just sending it into the corners when you run the top line. There's no lift generally, or there's very little lift, and it is it's ripping the top literally, ripping the tires a little bit, not as much as you might think. but just extreme high speeds. Would be extremely high Gs in the real world. There might not be Gs in sim racing, Joe, but you do start to get dizzy around here because you're constantly turning.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is you don't have that adrenaline to help you out as much, or at least quite the same way as the real thing that will keep you focused. In these cars, you really have to stick with it because everything happens so fast. And you mentioned the bubble, too. The real problem there with ripping the top is that, well, the bubble is not as significant in an open wheeler because in a tin top in a stock car, you've got plenty on that side pushing the air. In this thing, not quite so much. It does have quite a bit of air that it's pushing, but not on the side to really give you that air cushion.
Nobody's a fan of the dirty bubble.
Sounds like a very interesting nickname, but as we continue to watch this battle here, now I think this is what they needed to be doing, is really get single file and start racing their own race, because this should help them out tremendously here. Lights are also starting to pop on around the racetrack. It is getting into nighttime as the temperatures actually haven't dipped, though. It's still stuck at 77 Fahrenheit on the surface.
Jonathan Richmond said, "I love hot nights." I don't think any of these drivers agree with him right now. 25 degrees Celsius if you are of the Celsius brigade. I believe here in Iowa that would be 77 degrees Fahrenheit. I totally knew that in my head. I didn't just read it off the graphic as it changed there. So it is getting cooler. It's not as hot as you might think, but yeah, it's still not the ideal surface for the drivers. I don't think they would want it to be even cooler.
Yeah, cooler would probably help them really be able to hit the bottom a lot better and maybe facilitate passes a little bit. But thankfully, it's not super slippery hot out here. I think they've at least got decent racing conditions. Still, Luke Daniels been leading these guys. George Anzaldo, Craig Forsyth, and Luis Nunez kind of stuck behind him now. So maybe that's why they were fighting so hard earlier on. It's a case of, while you've got the grip in the tires, you got to get it done early, or else you're just going to be stuck here for the rest of the stint.
And I do want to say it shows very well to the quality of this series, the quality of the drivers and the quality of just the respect given by every driver. Normally when we talk about places where you can't pass or where it's very difficult to pass and drivers are getting aggressive in the opening laps, you think, oh, it's going to be a wreck fest like at Pocono. Nobody can pass and you make contact. But that hasn't happened here so far. As I say that, though, Anzaldo cracks the wall off of turn 4. Looks like it's still pointed straight. Looks like everything's still okay. But other than that, it's been very much incident-free, other than the big one that brought the caution out.
And that wasn't even really a quote-unquote big one. It's just two cars coming together and not even hitting anything else. So we've been pretty lucky tonight in terms of those yellows, knocking on wood now. We'll see if they can keep this up, or will it be another case like we saw before where it happened just as the pit stops came. What I find interesting is that wasn't what usually causes that in pit stop sequence yellows, which is, like I said, the cars on differing strategies coming across each other and just not anticipating the differences. That was two drivers racing for the lead on the same strategy.
Luis Nunez has a little bit of a head of steam here, or at least he did through 1 and 2. Through 3 and 4, looks like Forsyth has solved things a little bit. Almost gets into the wall like Anzaldo did in the exit, but he is going to hang on there for the moment. These guys have resolved things. You do have to notice as well, Sean Campbell, championship leader, has moved his way up to 13 in a place where it's been so difficult to pass, in a place where basically nobody has actually been able to make moves. Campbell's made 3 of them since the restart. He's up 6 spots from where he started. It's tough to stop this guy.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. He's made significant inroads here. And he might be able to do another. No, that's Reagan. That's a lapped car up ahead of him. He is chasing Drew White, though, who just overtook Reagan. So we'll probably want to disperse of that car to the outside pretty quickly. And he does. There's Drew White in the black and white machine just in front of him. It's about 5/10 of a second between them currently. And based on how many cars he's overtaken up till now, I think that's definitely doable. Is once again going to jump back to that battle down for 14th place between about 4 or 5 cars that has just been unending.
It kind of reminds me of when you run an AI race on iRacing. You see everybody trying the same thing lap after lap, and eventually something does give and something does change. Craig Forsyth down on the bottom and Zaldo up on the top. Both of these guys have loved taking that top line, running as close to the wall as possible. Now Forsyth has to figure out, how do I make the bottom work? How do I build up the momentum here? He tried it. It didn't work. He's back in line.
So you're saying it's the reverse. These drivers are coming for the AI's jobs.
I mean, they probably should. That would be great.
Yeah.
that would be in the future, probably. We're going to have AI that's just, it would be like a Forza Drivatar in a way. You just take Craig Forsyth's driving ability and duplicate it. But hopefully that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I like having real human drivers out here for now, as he's going to once again look a little bit to the inside. And they're now also coming across Reagan. And we've got, looks like about 5 cars that are a lap down or more now. So not a significant amount. We've lost Mike Rigney and Chris Stouffer. So it's not the full 29-car field. But the more drivers that get lapped, the more difficult it's going to be for these battles, because they're just going to be coming across them one after another.
It's a pretty incredible sound, just hearing these Lotus 79s echoing off the Iowa Speedway grandstands. Because it's not a sound that you hear in the real world. Iowa Speedway, I believe, was built in 2012. So this track was built about 20, 30 years after this car was raced in the real world. It's not a combination that should exist, but it does through the power of iRacing, and that's what we love to see.
I'm double checking on that. It was 2006, it looks like, when this opened. So a little bit of ways, but close enough.
It's older than I thought. Somebody born in 2006, they're going to be
17?
18 next year.
Yeah, don't remind me. The way the ages keep creeping like that is just I'm getting close to 40 now, so it's getting disturbing.
I believe Sean Campbell in the field here. I believe he's 19, so that would make him 2004, 2003?
Post 2000 baby, which is still so strange to me. I was in high school at that point, so
yeah, I'm just 2000 even. So even I'm concerned, because you'll see people who were born in like 2015, and they're like, they can talk now because they're 8 years old. That's crazy.
Oh, I know. I have 2 nephews. One is 3 and one is 6, and it's wild watching them grow up. But meanwhile, these guys trying to grow towards the finish of this race, getting close to the next pit window being open here.
Yeah, it's coming soon, and just like the end of the previous stint, Phil Kraus doing some great inroads as the stint wears on, as things continue on. Going to get held up a little bit in lap traffic, but not as much as Mark Cohn was. That was a huge checkup that he had to do to not get into the back of Chris Reagan there in turn 1. And 2 pink cars, Kraus versus the lap car Reagan. Going to be easier for Phil. Didn't lose much, didn't gain much. Got lucky there in the lap traffic.
But you can see how much this shakes things up. This is really kind of the thing that maybe some of the drivers are looking for, is this lap traffic. When you approach it, it'll at least cause an unknown that you can possibly capitalize on. Because right now, it looks like now that they're stuck behind late in the stint, the tires just don't have the grip to let them try and sneak by.
Well, as we do get into the dying stages of this stint, pit stops coming up in a matter of moments. We're going to take you side by side for just a moment. Don't go anywhere while we hear these words from the people who make all this possible. Welcome back to the Next Level Racing Iowa 250 presented by Arena TV. Joey Tebben, Joe Peak here with you in the booth. Hugo Luis on production duty, and we are about to be in the midst of green flag pit stops. Mike Rasmus has already brought it down pit road. He's kicked off the pit cycle, hoping we don't get a caution. Meanwhile, our race leaders, Mark Cohn and Phil Kraus, they're stuck in lap traffic.
Absolutely. So Rasimas, now having taken his pit down there in 23rd, is a lap down. He's in the danger zone. He needs these drivers to be able to keep it green until everybody else pits. And we've probably got a few more laps before they run out of the fuel window. But right now, if you pit, you can get to the end.
This is getting exceptionally dicey for Mark Cohn. That's Hugo Galaz on the outside, trying to get by him, but can't do it. He's been getting as close as humanly possible, but Hugo wants to stay on the lead lap. He doesn't want to lose that lead lap spot in case the caution comes out, and he is giving it his all. Mark Cohn's going to be frustrated.
Absolutely. He doesn't want Kraus to get any closer than he is right here. Oh, and into the wall.
He's in the wall. Mark Cohn makes contact with him, runs over the rear tire of Hugo Galaz. Galaz still in the wall, and here goes Phil Kraus to the outside. I think Mark Cohn might have damage from that.
So, yeah, there's the hit. Cohn clips him. The wing did buckle, so he's damaged the front wing. He's going to need to get that fixed. Looks like Sirois is pitting in the meantime. Tyler Graff I also see coming in, but Cohn stays out.
That is interesting. I would think you would want to minimize your losses in that scenario, but he's still going and probably hoping that a caution comes out, because if he got as close as he did, there's no telling what might happen. There could very well be a caution, but Phil Kraus going to be very, very happy right now. The driver who's won 4 races this season, the driver who was on the podium for 20 out of 21 races in the Lionheart IndyCar Series last year. He's back where he's comfortable. He's back in the lead, and he's almost going to put Mike Rasmus a lap down in those fresh tires and that fresh tank of fuel.
Now, I'd say, honestly, Cohn not coming in was probably the better call there. As, yes, you would think, okay, come in and try and get that repaired. But what he was probably hoping for was a yellow to come out, because that would give him more time to do repairs. Think about it. If he has to do those repairs under green flag racing, he could go more than a lap down.
Unfortunately, he has just come down to the cone. Mark Cohn on pit lane. Seb Alexander follows him in. Rodrigo Munoz, Tyler Graff. It's a whole host of drivers still on pit lane right now. Phil Kraus in traffic. You see Hugo Galaz still out there with that damage for some reason. I don't think he's been able to find a gap on the track to come down pit lane. He's got a chance now, but he's still going to stick it out there.
Yeah, not sure what he's doing exactly. And what's interesting is they do have to commit to pit lane on the backstretch here. They do not want you trying to dive in out of turn 4 down to the commitment cone. So if you're going to come into the pits, you have to try and do it down the backstretch.
This is getting very dicey for Phil Kraus. Sam Fontaine up ahead and a variety of drivers multiple laps down. This is tricky stuff, and this is where Phil Kraus is going to make this lead. Michael O'Brien comes in behind him. David Rodriguez comes in behind him. Could this be what loses Phil Kraus this race? Stuck in traffic. He finally brings it down pit lane. And he says, you know what? I'm stuck in traffic too much. I don't want to get undercut here. I need to cover off O'Brien.
Exactly. And so I think he's making the right call on this one. The question is, what did that damage do to the other car? And did they need to take repairs here? We'll have to watch the pit stop times. And looks like that is a no. They were able to get back out in time without having to give up too much.
Craig Forsyth taking over the lead for but a moment. But he will have to come in here in the near future. Going to get a lap lead. Not likely going to hang on to it for very long, though. Phil Kraus out of the box, 7.5 seconds. Mark Cohn was only in the box for 6.9. So even with that damage, does he have a shot at getting back up to Kraus here? Kraus back onto the track. That's Nunez, a lapped car who's going to get by him. But this has worked out beautifully for Phil Kraus. He's come out with a 4-second lead over Michael O'Brien.
It looks handily in his hands right now, so I'd say that this is Philip Kraus's to lose, because Forsyth just pitted in, so Phil is now officially back up to the lead.
That's crazy that Kraus was able to pull a 4-second gap there. O'Brien came in 1 lap earlier. Kraus was stuck in traffic. I'm just curious where that gap came from. I don't know if O'Brien came out in traffic himself and lost a bunch of time. Pit stops were basically identical, but somehow Phil Krause has just absolutely run away with this.
Yeah, I'm checking lap times here. I will say pit out time for Phil Krause does look significantly faster. It looks like about 1.5 seconds a lap faster than Michael O'Brien. So yes, he may have either got some traffic or just didn't feel confident in the car as he was trying to get up to speed. Whatever the case, the damage has been done, and he's now got quite a mountain to climb. 4 seconds on an oval is a lot. You need a tremendous amount, especially if it's under green flag racing. And considering we've only had a single yellow, you can't bank on a yellow right now.
And you know what's even worse, Joe? It's 5 seconds now. It's gotten worse.
So I think Phil Krause is basically wrangled control over this race from this point, because we're down to less than 40 laps to go with him having a pretty wide margin. That means that if he comes up upon more traffic and needs to overtake them, he can try and make sure that he does a safe overtake. He doesn't have to risk the car here and worry about O'Brien trying to snipe him at the finish.
And if you were wondering, does the undercut work? I think Mike Rasmus is proving right now that it didn't really work. It did nothing for him. Came in earlier than anybody. Came in about 10 laps earlier than anybody else. He's basically exactly where he started. But he's going to get by Mark Cohn here. Remember, Cohn does have a little bit of damage from that contact with the lapped car. And we did hear from Lionheart's own Andrew Kinsella in the chat that you can't actually change the wing in these cars. You do need to get it fully repaired, I guess. You need somebody in the pits to be banging the hammers on it.
This was before the days that they had a front clip on the car. So, yes, he would have to sit and wait for an extended time, and he absolutely did not do that. Cohn was in there actually quicker than most. In fact, one of the fastest pit stops there, maybe even short fueling a little bit, which might not work out well for him, because the other thing that damage does is if you've got drag like it looks like he has, is his fuel mileage is going to just go down the toilet.
Yeah, he needs those Colin Chapman crew members to break out the hammers and just straighten that thing out. But you can't do that in 7 seconds, unfortunately. How times have changed.
Chapman would probably rip the wing off if I know Colin Chapman. Yeah.
I do. I mean, I'm no engineer. I dropped out of engineering after a year. Would it be faster around here with no front wing? I don't think it would.
I actually think it would be.
Oh?
I think the wing is probably more drag than downforce on this car. I think you would get significant speed as another one brushes the wall there coming onto the main straight. That seems to have been a theme. I think that was Rasmus that we just saw do that.
Yeah, I think Cohn might be thinking then, I wish the whole front wing would have come off instead of the damage. It would have helped him out a little bit there. But Rasmus, yeah, he is playing with fire. He's doing it again. Matt Taylor gets by him because he's playing so closely with the wall. And Matt Wagner right behind. This could be a 2-for-1 loss for Rasmus, as here comes Wagner down to the bottom. Rasmus probably needs to find a way back down to the bottom, because every time he's up there on the top, he can't stay out of the wall.
And a little love to Matt Taylor in that number 8 car, because he's up 8 positions since the start. That's a lot harder up at the front end of the field to get all those spots. So that car, looking like it's straight out of 1992, has honestly been really good today.
This is just a mix of throwbacks. It's like we're in Back to the Future. It's a 1992 car on a 1979 car on a track from 2006 in 2023. It's a crazy time.
Yeah, that quip is more in reference to the colors he's chosen. I don't think it's an actual paint scheme, but it feels what I remember the early 90s looking like.
I wouldn't know what they looked like, Joe.
I know you wouldn't. Be glad.
8 years too late.
They were a very corny time, which I guess is appropriate for a track like this.
Exactly. I mean, we can bring that part back. We'll be as corny as humanly possible. We've been low on the corn jokes, I think, unfortunately, since the intro. But Matt Wagner, I mean, yellow car. That's as corn colored as anybody in the field. That might be working for him.
Absolutely. Well, he's doing a pretty good job considering what he's having to deal with. It's still got himself quite a bit of a battle here as he ducks underneath Rasmus, but Wagner going to try and do his best to overtake on the bottom, which, as we said, has not been the best of ways. He gets right down to that yellow line, and he's going to have to drift up a little bit higher. Now, that's also a bit tricky because unless you have a live spotter, sometimes it can be tough to tell how high up that driver is. The iRacing spotter only gives you so much. Let's see if he drifts up closer to him this time.
Off of turn 4, Rasmus again. I think he has to lift out of the throttle. He's getting so high in 4, and that has allowed Matt Wagner to clear him once more. That's 2 mats, and there might just be a mark. Oh, up into the wall almost again.
Oh, he was in the marbles is what it was that time. He's very, very lucky. Oh, and into the wall very hard. That's another yellow.
Oh, the caution comes out as Chris Reagan smacks the wall. And that is going to freeze the field with 8 cars on the lead lap. Sean Campbell is going to be so thankful that caution came out. But here's what happened to Reagan into turn 3, trying to run the top. Oh, my goodness. The steering wheel just turns hard right there. That doesn't look like it was a mistake in driving. That just looked like the steering wheel turned hard right.
Yeah, that is some hardware failure, unfortunately. So it looks like he'll probably want to look into getting that wheel replaced or dig into the bugs and find out what is making it do that, as that is obviously race ending when that sort of stuff happens. And in the real world, you have failure equipment. In the virtual world, the cars and the sim themselves don't really kind of fall apart due to stress on the parts in the same way that you see in the real world, because they haven't kind of factored that in. But your real physical wheels, your real physical pedals can have that happen. So that's sort of the actual equivalent that we have to real racing.
So this is going to be very interesting here, Joe, because we haven't really seen tire wear at all. You get faster over the course of the run, so I don't think it would really be worth it to come down pit lane to take tires here. And it looks like everybody's agreed with me except for Rasmus, who has brought it down pit lane. It's an interesting strategy call. He's only lost 1 spot from it, but
yes.
Will it do him any good?
I say, well, it's not, I think, as much of a question of will it do him any good. It's more of a question of why not. Like you said, he only lost 1 spot. That's because with only 8 cars on the lead lap and him being towards the tail end of that, he just lost that 1 spot. I mean, what has he got to lose other than that 1 position? And now he's got fresher tires. So plus we know he's probably got a little bit of damage from the times that he's brushed up against the wall. So probably took a bit to try and let the crew fix that. Yeah, I could see him wiggling the car as he came back out on track. He's trying to feel it out, make sure that everything is handling correctly. And this will maybe give him a bit more speed.
So this is going to get very interesting because Phil Kraus is your race leader right now. The driver behind him is not on the same lap. You have to go multiple cars back in this train to the number 20 of Chris Fowler. Under caution, it's a 2-second gap. That's going to be even bigger once we go green here. Fowler did a great job of actually getting by Michael O'Brien right before that caution came out, basically. Made a great move for second. He's going to have to make a lot of moves on the lap traffic, though, if he wants to get up close to Phil Kraus, because with the rules of the series, with the rules of any open wheel series on the oval side, those lap cars, if they're behind the leader, they don't get waved around.
Exactly. So these they're going to have a lot of headache to deal with, whereas in a normal situation, Fowler would have been really cheering about the fact that they got a yellow because it would have closed him up to Philip Kraus. But now it's just going to mean that he has to try and overtake a lot of cars very quickly and hope that they cooperate. He's probably not going to get that back here. A bit more evidence, I think, that maybe that was some sort of software issue that caused problems for Chris Reagan. His computer seemed to start spamming the chat and had to be removed from the server. I don't think that was done out of rage quit sort of stuff. I think that was something actually going wrong with his computer there.
I think it heard what you said, Joe, about humans taking AI's jobs, and it said, no, computers are going to win.
That's what they think. I've seen Terminator. We've got
I think Phil Kraus is a Terminator. It is possible.
Coming back in time to win all of your races. So
maybe.
Okay, restarting with 20 to go, a little less than 20 to go here. This is going to be a quick sprint. You have to remember, these are 20-second laps. So these are going to go by extremely quickly. We're looking at probably then, in that case, about 7 to 8 minutes of racing when they go green.
My math isn't very good, Joe. I think I can count it sometimes. I think there's 9 lapped cars between Kraus and Fowler here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That is a lot of cars to pass. If it was 3 cars, it might be possible. But Fowler is going to have to be absolutely perfect here, and honestly hope that Phil Kraus runs into some trouble. He has Richie Hearn behind him, a driver with real-life IndyCar experience, a driver with maybe more Lionheart experience than anybody else in the field. He's going to want to get back on the lead lap. But how difficult will he make life for Phil Kraus? The iRacing Sedan pace car is pulling it onto pit road. Phil Kraus takes control of the field. And for potentially the final time, we are going to be green once more at Iowa. Kraus gets a huge jump, and we're back to green.
Part of the problem, though, is cautions often breed cautions. These drivers could wind up with more to deal with here, depending on if they can keep it clean from here. And just behind him, that was Richie Hearn nearly clipping the outside wall.
Kraus is in control right now, but we got to go back to Michael O'Brien and Chris Fowler. It's the battle for second. Absolutely lodged in traffic. There's O'Brien to the outside, now to the inside of some lap traffic. He's got the bottom. Fowler's got the bottom. They're trying to make moves when they can, but it is exceptionally difficult with some fast cars who are 1 lap down.
Exactly, which is what makes it so much harder. But Fowler's run away from him a little bit. Now O'Brien is clear. He's got to make hay while the sun shines. George Anzaldo is the next one up. He's sitting in 12th position, so Fowler's got to try and get by him.
And look at Sean Campbell down in the bottom there. The guy started 19th, and he's up to 6th. Right behind David Sirois. We could see a Sean Campbell top 5. We could even see a Sean Campbell podium at the end of today. You can never count this guy out, unfortunately. He's got a whole host of lap cars ahead of him, but he is making moves and making progress fast.
Yeah, but it looks like he is absolutely in the thick of it right now. There's a bunch of cars around him, all with different agendas right now, all on varying laps and whatnot. As many of them, obviously, on different handling cars as well.
I am shocked that that wasn't another caution there with what we saw with Rodriguez and O'Brien. There were intersected wheels there off of turn 4, but we still keep it straight. That just shows you how dicey it is here. Matt Wagner trying to get to the outside of Sean Campbell as he's had to check up for a lot of this craziness. Wagner in that highlighter yellow and black car at the back of the pack. Sean Campbell in the shiny blue one. They can't make any moves in this pack. They just need to basically hope to pass each other, and there's Rasmus on the scene as well.
Sirois the one he's chasing out. Campbell got Wagner. He's up to 6th position. Oh, and things are getting tight up there because the other problem is that drivers are going to have checkups, and you need to be really on your toes about that. I think that was some contact there with Munoz, who got into the back of Valenzuela, excuse me.
They're not 3 wide into turn 3 this time, which is lucky, which is considerate for us, but it is getting crazy. Huge check up there off of turn 4. Sirois is going to get by one of the lapped cars. He's going to be in clean air for a moment. But a few others on the scene very quickly. You see Valenzuela there ripping the top as a lapped car. He's trying to move his way forward. He's causing a little bit of havoc, but no harm, no foul for him. He's got every right to be racing with those cars around because they might all be 1 lap down, but they are racing for position.
Exactly. Also, remember how we wondered whether or not O'Brien could catch Fowler? That's going to be a big no. Fowler's gapped it to 2.1 seconds in the traffic.
O'Brien has been on struggle street in the traffic here. Valenzuela gets by Forsyth, but Sirois almost in the wall off of turn 4 there. Matt Taylor getting even closer to the wall. 10 laps to go here. And if you've got any more inches to spare to get up to the wall, you've got to use them now. And Matt Taylor, he's using every inch of this track in that multicolored car.
Yeah, there's nothing really left to try and preserve. It's a sprint to the finish, so use up those tires and try to get as many spots as you can. Fontaine going to let him go. Fontaine not fighting anybody, so that's the gentlemanly thing to do for him. But can Sirois catch back up to Taylor now?
He's on the charge. 7 laps to go. 0.7 of a second for Sirois. Doesn't seem like a very large gap. but it could grow, it could shrink. It's probably going to stay as it is, if I had to guess, because Matt Taylor has found a little bit of clean air. He's basically the only driver on track who's in clean air right now. He should consider himself very lucky, and he's just going to hope that Sirois can't find another gear and can't close down that gap. Taylor, much safer that time, not getting as close to the turn 4 wall as he once was. Sirois basically following him in line, but here's our leader, Phil Kraus. As he crosses the line here, it's going to be 6 laps to go. He's in control, and I don't even think he's going to reach lap traffic again.
You know, usually, like I said, the caution is good news for the second place driver, bad news for the first place driver. It was the complete reverse this time. All that lap traffic has meant that he gets to run away. He's in completely clean air, and there's nobody he has to lap, because remember, he was also having to overtake cars constantly before that yellow came out. So this basically cleared the road for the 4.
It's basically a victory lap right now. As he crosses the line, it's going to be 4 laps to go, but there's a car in the wall. I think that's Seb Alexander, potentially. No caution. Everybody's still pointed straight, but there was some big trouble on the front straight there. Multiple drivers with damage falling down the order. Here's a replay. Seb Alexander in the wall. Did he collect anybody? Yes, he did.
Rodrigo Munoz, unfortunately, but it was a super close moment for Mike Rasimas. He just dipped through there.
Well done by Rodrigo to keep it pointed straight there. Seb Alexander toes as he realizes he's not going to make it back to the pits. So, not going to end under caution there unless that happens again. Drew White trying to get one more spot here. Him and Richie Hearn are in the battle for the final spot in the top 10. Phil Kraus is in control, but there's still a fight here as Matt Taylor has reached lap traffic. He's reached Michael O'Brien as well. The fight for the podium is on. David Sirois joining in as well.
And I can guarantee you these drivers definitely want a podium here. They want those valuable points, especially at this stage in the championship. And with Kraus up there getting a win, he's certainly going to close things up at the front.
Kraus is going to take the white flag this time by here. 7 more eighths of a mile for Phil Kraus. He has been absolutely dominant all night long. He's almost been dominant all season long. He's got more wins than anybody. The 4 car has 4 wins. And as he comes out of turn 4 at Iowa, he's going to win for the 5th time this season. Phil Kraus victorious in the Next Level Racing Iowa 250. And is this the start of clawing that point gap back to Sean Campbell?
And can I point out, that was my pick.
It was. You're right.
So the
You've had your fill of glory.
Exactly. Well, for once, the commentator's curse doesn't hit me on predictions.
Well, that's because it's your first time back in the Lionheart booth, Joe. It's got to be a good luck charm. I think Phil Kraus is going to be saying, hey, can Joe come back every week? I don't think DJ would be too happy about that, but, you know.
Yeah. Oh, look at it. He's hyped about this one. Like you said, he needs to come back in the points. He has the most wins, but he needs the consistency, and this is going to do him a lot of good.
And he is proving that he is so tough to beat in the ovals. He hasn't won all of the oval races this season. We've seen Rodrigo Munoz, like I said, won at Indy. Sean Campbell won at Pocono. O'Brien won at New Hampshire. But so experienced is Phil Kraus. I believe the highest oval I rating in the field. Doesn't necessarily mean everything, but it is still a good statistic to hang your laurels on. And what a result for Phil Kraus. Running the Iowa Legends Oval just because he can. That would be a good race for the future, maybe, for this series. We get more cautions than we did tonight, but Phil Kraus doing a little bit of experimentation there as he wins for the 5th time this season. It's our arena race results. Chris Fowler, fantastic job by him. Multiple spots up from where he started. He finishes ahead of his teammate, Michael O'Brien, the pole sitter. Would have been in contention for the win. A little bit of contact with David Rodriguez, though, demoted him to 3rd. Matt Taylor and David Sirois had a spirited battle at the end. They finished 4th and 5th. And the inevitable Sean Campbell, qualified 19th, looked incompetent for the first time ever in his career, and suddenly he's back up into 6th at the end of the race, ahead of Matt Wagner and ahead of Mike Rasmus. Late race call to come down and get tires. Didn't really lose him anything, didn't gain him anything either. Luke Daniels and Richie Hearn round out the end of the top 10 there. Richie Hearn, great drive forward for him as well. Drew White and George Anzaldo down to the end of the top dozen. They were joined by Fontaine and Valenzuela at the end of the lead lap. Then Craig Forsyth and Mark Cohn both ran into assorted amounts of trouble. Cohn in the lead of the race when a lap car made contact with him. Alex Gouillon, David Rodriguez, Tyler Graff, and Sam Ryman round out the top 20. It is only 20th for Sam Ryman, but that's up 9 spots. He's going to hang his laurels on that one. Jeff Highsong ran into trouble 4 laps down. Then we start to get into the used car lot of drivers with heavy damage. Seb Alexander and Rodrigo Munoz got into a big crash in the final laps, as did Hugo Galaz. Christopher Reagan likely had a hardware failure, maybe a tire pop. Either way, 30 laps down for him. And then Luis Nunez, Jimbo Pfeiffer, Mike Rigney, and Chris Stouffer down to the end of the field. All sorts of bad luck and equipment and crashes. They're going to be looking to next week at Phoenix to get back on the road there. But now that we have some of our drivers waiting for us, it is time to get into the next level racing post-race show. And first and foremost, in victory lane, we have our race winner, Phil Kraus. A lot had to go his way to win this race, but once he got up there, he was unbeatable. Phil Kraus, welcome to the booth. Welcome to your 5th win of the season. Did you expect that to happen when you qualified in the front row?
I don't really know what I expected, to be honest. I did my first laps like 40 minutes before green, so we just kind of went in and we just vibed. It was all right. Dirty air was pretty bad, but overall it was all right.
Yeah, sometimes that is the way to go, just vibing. But you came into tonight 5th in the points, if I'm remembering correctly, but with the most wins in the field. Is this win going to start to get you back onto that rhythm to claw that gap back up to Sean Campbell in the championship?
Probably not. I'm too busy crashing in the races I'm not doing well in, so I imagine it'll be a few more of those this season, but I mean, we'll see. Sean always has good races.
We'll manifest some good luck for you again for later this season. And also, Joe Peak in the booth for the first time this season. He did pick you in the pre-race, so do you want him back as a good luck charm next week?
Yes.
There's your answer. Phil
This
Kraus.
is not a request. It's a requirement.
I mean, you are the race winner. You do have the right to do that. Phil Kraus.
All right, Joe, you better be back.
We'll see. We'll see if Arjuna makes it back. But Phil Kraus, your victor tonight for Team Talent, and he will be going home very, very happy. Hopefully, he doesn't have the inconsistency he's had in the opening rounds of this season. Hopefully, we do manifest that. We do have 3rd place here, though. Michael O'Brien's here, and he's here to talk to Joe Peak.
Indeed, Michael, you led the early part of this thing, but then suddenly the accident happened. Were you a bit surprised that you came together in that moment? Did you kind of see it coming as the car started to understeer, or walk us through it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry to David, first of all. We both luckily got away with no damage from that, which was a miracle. The traffic, man, it was a nightmare. The dirty air, I just pushed up more than I was expecting.
We could tell that it seemed to be difficult to deal with, and passing seemed to be a bit of a premium. Was that kind of the reason why you couldn't push yourself back up to chase Kraus once you'd lost the lead? Was it hard to try and make a challenge from behind?
Yeah, the dirty air about sort of 7-8 tenths-ish. Once the track starts getting faster and you can pretty much go flat out, you've got no real way of getting past anyone unless they let you go past.
Now, that last caution came right towards the end, but there were so many lapped cars. What was going through your head when you saw that? Were you thinking opportunity, or is this like, oh, this is going to be a headache?
Yeah, unfortunately, it wasn't quite late enough, so they didn't get filtered back. But yeah, I mean, there was... Just because that all spreads out, we knew we were going to be seconds behind Phil. Wasn't a whole lot to do, really.
Well, still a podium here today. I'm sure it's not the win that you maybe hoped for, but would you say you feel like this at least ticked the box of a good points day?
Yeah, I'm never unhappy with a podium. Never unhappy. It's good for championship reasons and everything. It's a shame Phil's the one that won, but he earned it today.
Well, again, congratulations on that podium, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you more in future rounds.
Thanks, guys.
That was Michael O'Brien. Back to you, Joey.
Indeed, and that's about it for us here from Iowa. It's always a shame when we leave Iowa, one of the finest ovals in the world, kind of deliberately designed back in 2006 or the years before by Rusty Wallace and the gang to be very good for racing. And I think it certainly delivered on that once again, Joe. Maybe difficult to pass in these cars, but we still saw some fantastic action. And, if you can call it that, kind of an underdog winner in Phil Kraus. Maybe the 3rd strongest car ended up victorious tonight. See if we can move that momentum into another short oval at Phoenix next week.
Exactly. And there are going to be some carryovers, but not all of them, because it's a little bit bigger of an oval, but it's a lot more flat. And it's honestly going to force the drivers to deal with some interesting layout problems. But I look forward to seeing how they deal with it.
We had some cool conditions tonight at Iowa. I don't think you're going to see any cool conditions at Phoenix next week, so we'll see what happens there with the Majors Garage, Phoenix 175. Same time, same place here on RaceSpotTV. We hope you'll join us then for more fantastic Lionheart Retro Series action. But before we say goodbye, it's time to thank all of those that make all of this possible. And to learn more about the Lionheart Racing Series, the 3 competitions the sanctioning body puts on, or its partners, head on over to LionheartRacingSeries.com, while Lionheart social media is the place to go to keep in touch with all things Lionheart. We'll be back next week in Phoenix, but for now, here on RaceSpotTV, I've been Joey Tebben, Joe Peak has been Joe Peak, our producer has been Hugo Luis, and until we see you next time, so long.